It started with a sound. Not a scream, not a crash, just this soft, almost lazy drip that echoed through the early morning silence like it was mocking me. I was standing in the kitchen, waiting for my coffee to finish brewing, when I heard it, that small, wet sound that didn't belong. I stepped outside, still in my slippers, and the cold, wet slap of muddy water on my feet jolted me awake. The backyard looked like it had swallowed a lake overnight. The grass was submerged, patches of earth bubbling like something alive was underneath. My grill floated half-tipped near the patio. I stared, not even annoyed at first, just puzzled, like I was trying to remember if I'd missed a storm. There hadn't been one. I walked around the side of the house, my robe sticking to my legs, and that's when I noticed the waterline. It ran like a scar from the fence. It didn't start in my yard. Came from somewhere. I called a contractor, guy named Mike, someone my buddy had used when his basement flooded last year. Mike was direct, no fluff. Came over 2 days later, looked at the yard, then told me he needed to dig. Couple hours in, I saw him stand up slowly, holding something white and thick in his gloves. "This pipe," he said, shaking his head, "this pipe isn't yours." I blinked. "Whose is it, then?" He didn't answer. Just pointed toward the fence. "Let me show you." He followed the pipe, digging carefully until it disappeared under the wooden boundary between my property and the house next door. The same house where Brad lived. Brad, the charming neighbor with the eternal tan and that weird habit of being around all the time. He always seemed to show up just when my wife was pulling into the driveway. Once I came home and he was already in my garage, helping her carry in groceries she didn't ask for help with. Mike wiped his hands on his jeans. "Someone rerouted their drain right into your yard. This wasn't a mistake. Someone did this." It should have made me furious, but my brain didn't go to the pipe. It didn't go to the damage, or the lawn, or the money this would cost. It went to a moment 3 weeks ago when I came home early and saw Brad leaning a little too close to her car window as she laughed at something he said. I remember thinking, why does he know exactly when she gets home? Why was she smiling like that? That pipe was a thread. I started pulling it hard. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I opened her laptop. It wasn't locked. I told myself I was checking emails for receipts for a plumber, anything. That was a lie. I found the folder by accident. It wasn't hidden, but it was named in lowercase, buried inside a random directory. Inside were screenshots. Conversations. Some of them were just texts, some were full email chains. I don't know what hit me first, the frequency or the tone. They were talking every day like it was normal. Like they were something. One message, dated 2 days ago, hit harder than the rest. He wrote, "When are you finally going to leave that idiot? I'm tired of hiding the pipe stuff. I want us to be real." She replied, "Soon. He's not even suspicious. He thinks the water is a fluke. Just like him, slow and clueless." My chest tightened. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I closed it slowly, gently, like it was something sacred I was tainting. I walked outside and stared at the yard. Still flooded. Still ruined. But now I realized this wasn't about water. This was a message. A declaration. He didn't just betray me. She didn't just lie. They marked me. And that's when I decided to return the favor. I didn't yell. I didn't confront. Not yet. First, I called Mike back and asked him how hard it would be to install a backflow valve that rerouted the water. Not into the sewer, not into my yard, but right back where it came from. He grinned. "That's doable." I didn't smile. I just nodded. Let them have their fun. Let them think I was slow and clueless. The storm was coming. But this time I'd control the flood. Mike came back 2 days later with his crew and we worked in silence. I told my wife it was standard pipe maintenance, something about back pressure and drainage codes. She barely listened. She was on her phone most of the time, pacing the kitchen with a fake laugh I'd never noticed before. A performance for someone else, maybe even a live one. I'd start talking and her eyes would glaze over, scrolling something more important. The new system was simple but ruthless. Every drop that Brad sent into my yard would now surge back into his. No buffer, no filter. Mike even added a booster pump for the next rain. His words, not mine. "You want him to feel it? Let him drown in his own mess." Perfect. But that wasn't enough. The texts haunted me. They didn't read like two people having a fling. They sounded like partners, like conspirators. Every message was layered with that sickening smugness. Two people whispering behind your back while you pay the bills and mow the lawn. I had to read through sentences like, "He doesn't even look at me anymore unless I talk first." And, "You make me feel like a woman again, not a babysitter." I stared at her for hours while she slept that night. I memorized the curve of her lips, the way her hair fell across her face. Everything about her looked the same, but I couldn't find a trace of the person I married. It was like staring at a really good replica of something you used to love, close but empty. She stirred once, rolled toward me in her sleep, and mumbled his name. Not loud, not clear, but enough. The next morning I made breakfast. Bacon, eggs, toast. I hadn't cooked in weeks, and I made it perfectly, because I wanted her to eat it with guilt stuck in her throat. She walked into the kitchen in one of her old oversized sweaters and said, "You're in a good mood today." I smiled. "Just grateful." "Grateful?" She laughed. "For what?" "For you," I said. "And this home." She raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. Why would she? In her mind, I was the idiot husband. I was supposed to stay blind. That evening, I installed a hidden camera in the garage. I used an old security cam from when we had a break-and scare last year. She never knew I kept it. I angled it low, subtle, pointed right at the door leading into the house. If he ever stepped inside just once, I'd have it. By now, I wasn't even angry. Not really. It was something colder, deeper. I didn't want revenge just for the betrayal. I wanted clarity. I needed to know just how far they'd gone. If she brought him here. If he used my tools. If he walked on my floors. 3 nights later, I got my answer. Motion alert. 8:43 p.m. I opened the feed on my phone, heart thudding slow but heavy. There he was, Brad, standing in my garage. Holding something. Her car keys. She followed him in, laughing like they'd just come from a movie. He set the keys on my tool bench and leaned in close. She didn't stop him. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. She grabbed his arm and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she turned off the light. And that was it. I sat there in the dark, phone in my hand, the screen still glowing even after they were gone. Everything was clear now. They thought they were clever. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, she hummed while brushing her hair. That same soft, casual hum she used to make when we were first married and everything was light. Back then, I used to think it meant she was happy. Now I knew better, it was her soundtrack for guiltless lies. She wore her favorite boots. The brown ones with the gold buckle, the ones she only wore when she was trying to accidentally look impressive. That was the day I realized she had 2 wardrobes, one for the version of herself she gave me and one for the world she'd built without me. I watched her walk out the door with that too casual kiss on the cheek and the words, "Don't wait up." She didn't see the small camera tucked behind the ceramic vase on the entry shelf, the one I'd adjusted last night. She was gone for 3 hours. Brad's car wasn't in his driveway that entire time. When she got home, she smelled like peppermint gum and hotel shampoo. That night, I didn't sleep. I made my move the next day. I visited Brad's house, walked right up to the door with a box of muffins in my hand and a calmness that felt so foreign I barely recognized myself. He opened the door with that fake boy next door smile, like he didn't know my lawn had become his personal swamp dump. "Hey," I said. "I think there's been some kind of issue with the drainage system between our yards." His smile didn't falter, but I saw it in his eyes, the split-second flicker of discomfort. "Oh? Really? That's weird, I haven't noticed anything." I nodded slowly, like I bought it. "You mind if I take a look? Just want to make sure it's not affecting both sides." He hesitated. I stepped forward, just enough to make him back up. We walked around his side yard and I stopped where the pipe vanished underground. My voice was soft, even. "You know, Brad, it's funny. I had a contractor out the other day. He said this pipe," I tapped it with my foot, "wasn't supposed to be there." He laughed a little too loud. "Oh, that? Must be some old system from before I moved in." "No idea, man." "Right," I said, still nodding. "And the reroute? The one going straight into my yard?" He didn't answer. I smiled, the way you smile at someone who's already dug their own grave but hasn't realized it yet. "Anyway, just thought I'd let you know. I've got a guy coming to fix it. Shouldn't be a problem anymore." I turned and left him standing there in his perfect lawn under the hot sun, suddenly sweating like he'd swallowed gravel. Later that night, the sky cracked open. The rain hit like bullets, fast, hard, relentless. The new system I installed kicked in instantly. I watched the feed from my phone as water gushed through the rerouted pipe, not toward me but straight back into his foundation. It was poetry. The water didn't just return. It surged, pooling around his back porch, spilling under the frame of his garage, splashing against his pristine little herb garden like a tide of justice. Then I heard it, screaming, through the rain, through the fence. His voice, her voice, yelling, accusing, blaming. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, watching the downpour soak the world. It was operatic, a symphony of panic. She came inside half an hour later, soaked, furious, hair stuck to her cheeks, jacket dripping across the hardwood floor. The whole garage is flooded, she snapped. Do you know anything about this? I shrugged. Maybe you should ask Brad. Her eyes narrowed like she wanted to slap me but didn't know what for. Not yet. But she didn't sleep that night. She paced the hallway in damp socks, muttering to herself. She kept checking her phone, typing furious little bursts, then deleting them. I watched from the bedroom, pretending to read, listening to the silence stretch and snap around her like a rubber band pulled too tight. She came into the room around 2 a.m., arms crossed, hair still wet from the rain like she couldn't decide if she was tired or just trapped. You've been weird lately, she said, standing in the doorway. I didn't look up from my book. Define weird. She hesitated. You're calm. Too calm. You don't ask me where I go anymore. I turned a page slowly. Should I? She flinched. Just slightly. Then scoffed like she was already rewinding, already reshaping the conversation. I'm just saying. You're acting like you don't care. I closed the book. Stood up. I don't, I said. Her face twitched like I'd slapped her, but she covered it with a smile. That's funny. No, I said, it's true. There was a long pause. Then she asked, too casually, did you mess with Brad's house? I didn't blink. What happened to Brad's house? Don't play dumb. The water. His garage, you mean the water that used to flood our backyard? I stepped closer. You mean the pipe you never asked about? The one your boyfriend used to dump his trash into my life. The color drained from her face, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't have a comeback ready. No joke, no eye roll, no sweet-laced sarcasm. Just silence. I leaned in. I know everything. Still nothing. Every message I said. Every laugh. Every lie you thought I was too slow to catch. That got her. She exploded. You went through my stuff. That's insane. That's a violation, I laughed. Cold. Sharp. A violation? You really want to talk about violations? About lying to my face every day while crawling around behind my back like some petty soap opera extra? Don't you dare make me the villain here, she snapped, stepping forward. You ignored me for years. You stopped caring. Brad saw me. He made me feel important. I interrupted. Special? Alive? Save the script. I've read the whole damn screenplay, and it's garbage. She looked like she wanted to hit me, maybe even scream again. But something stopped her. Maybe the way I stood unbothered. Maybe because for the first time she was on the back foot. I turned and walked to the bedroom door. You've got 24 hours to tell him it's over. She blinked. Or what? I didn't answer, but I made sure she saw the flash drive I dropped onto the table as I left. The one labeled with both their names. She didn't follow me. She didn't sleep. But I did. Better than I had in weeks. She left the house the next morning without a word. No humming this time. No fake kiss, no pretend normal. Just slammed the door harder than she needed to and peeled out of the driveway like she wanted the tires to scream for her. She didn't come back for 11 hours. When she did, it was with her jaw set like stone and eyes that refused to meet mine. She dropped her bag by the door and hovered there like someone walking into a courtroom, not a home. I talked to him, she said flatly. I looked up from the couch. And it's done. Just like that. She narrowed her eyes. You think I owe you more? I stood slowly, walked over to her. I think you owe me everything you've been hiding. I think you owe me the truth for once. Not for forgiveness, just for reality. Let's both stop pretending. She laughed short, bitter, defensive. You want the truth? Fine. I was bored. I was tired. You stopped seeing me, stopped touching me, stopped making me feel like I mattered. Brad didn't start as an affair. He started as a distraction. A mirror. He looked at me like I still had value. You picked him over me, I said. She rolled her eyes. Don't flatter yourself. I didn't pick anyone. I just stopped waiting for you to notice I was gone. There it was. The line. The truth under all the excuses. She wanted to be seen. And when I didn't deliver, she sold her soul for a man who complimented her earrings and rerouted sewage through my grass. Then why are you still here? I asked. She blinked. If you're so done, if Brad was your rescue ship, why aren't you over there drying his socks in front of a humidifier and explaining why his tools are floating in his garage? Because you ruined that, she snapped. I stepped closer. No. You ruined that. I just returned the water. We stood in silence. She suddenly looked small. Not weak, small. Like the performance was over and she didn't know what to do without the stage. Finally, she said, so what now? You want a divorce? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted her to sit in the uncertainty for once. I wanted her to feel what it was like to wake up in a world she didn't control. She walked past me, muttering, coward. I turned. That's rich, coming from someone who couldn't even break up with her affair partner face to face. That stopped her. She turned slowly, and for the first time I saw cracks in her armor. Her voice was low now. Wounded. I didn't want it to end like this. Neither did I said. But you started writing this ending the moment you let him in. She stood there, not knowing whether to fight or cry. But I was done managing her emotions. Done translating her lies into something I could live with. I walked back to the living room and sat down, letting her decide whether she'd follow or vanish. She didn't follow. She didn't vanish either. She just stood there, finally silent, finally stuck. And for the first time, the house felt honest. 2 days passed. The air between us wasn't cold, it was frozen. Every step she took echoed too loudly. Every cabinet she opened sounded like it screamed. The house had become a waiting room. Both of us circling each other like ghosts. Stuck between what had already died and whatever came next. She didn't talk to me, but I caught her watching me. More than once. I'd be eating, reading, watering the one plant she used to care about but hadn't touched in months. And I'd feel her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, just watching. Like she was trying to understand who I was now, or maybe what she'd lost. Or maybe she still thought she had control. That if she stood still long enough, I'd forget everything and come crawling back into the illusion. She had no idea who she was dealing with anymore. I wasn't broken. I was awake. On the third day, she left a note on the counter. No words, just a key. Her spare. Neatly placed next to her favorite mug. The one with the chipped handle I never liked. It was the smallest, strangest apology. A silent signal. I didn't touch it. Instead, I called Mike. Yeah? He answered. Everything's still holding up? It is. But I need one more favor. Pause. Something big. Not illegal. But close. He laughed. I'm listening. I told him what I needed. He laughed again, harder this time. Petty. I like it. That afternoon, he came by and helped me reroute the final piece. A harmless line. Nothing dangerous. Just enough to send a message. One last reminder. See, Brad's house had a secondary drain that spilled into a narrow trench between our fences. Barely noticeable unless you were standing right on top of it. All I did was plug it. Not permanently, just long enough. Next rain, it would clog up. Flood backwards. Nothing destructive. Just a nice, disgusting puddle to ruin his custom patio furniture. Mike finished and clapped me on the back. You sure this is the right way? Absolutely, I said. I'm not interested in court. Just closure. Then you've already won. That night, I sat on the porch watching the sky thicken with clouds. The smell of rain hovered like a promise. She stepped outside around midnight, barefoot, wearing the hoodie she always stole from me when she wanted to feel safe. She looked at me for a long time, then said, I know what you did. I didn't flinch. Good. It was petty. No, I corrected. It was symbolic. She crossed her arms. You think you're better than me now? No, I said. I think I was better the whole time. I just stopped pretending we were equal. That cracked something in her. Her face twisted, not rage, not sorrow. Just realization. Like she was finally seeing herself through the mirror I held up and she didn't like what stared back. Then came the thunder. Low. Slow. The kind that rolls across the sky like judgment. She turned her eyes to the horizon like it could save her. But it couldn't. The storm was already here. And this time she was the one without shelter. The rain came like it had been waiting for my permission. Heavy, relentless, unapologetic. I didn't move from the porch. Just pulled my hoodie tighter and watched the water snake across the pavement, curl around the grass, and disappear into the new channels I'd helped carve. It was a beautiful thing, really controlled chaos. Not destructive, just revealing. By 3 a.m., Brad's side yard was a mess. Again. I knew because I heard the yelling. Same voices. Different tone. She was over there. I didn't need proof. I didn't need cameras this time. Her absence said more than any image could. I imagined her knocking on his door, stepping into his dry warmth with that same tilted smile. Probably thinking she could fix things. Probably thinking she still had power there. But water doesn't care about apologies. By 3:20, I got what I'd been waiting for. The knock. Not hers. His. I opened the door to find Brad standing on my porch, dripping, furious, hair plastered to his forehead. But the rage wasn't aimed at me. It was panic buried under the need to act like he was still in control. You think this is funny? He snapped, wiping water from his eyes. You think flooding my yard is some kind of game? I leaned against the doorframe. Calm. Level. I don't play games, Brad. You should know that by now. His jaw tightened. You vandalized my property. Nope, I said. I redirected water. Water you originally sent into my home. So technically, I just gave it back. You're insane. I smirked. Maybe. But I'm dry. He stepped forward. Too close. She doesn't want you anymore. You know that, right? That hit harder than I expected. But I didn't let it show. I tilted my head. You sure about that? Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like she wants you either. He stared at me, water dripping from his chin. He was waiting for me to crack. For me to lose it. Throw a punch. Threaten him. But I stayed still, let the silence hum between us. Then I asked, how's the furniture? His eyes narrowed. You know the set you bragged about? With the imported wood? Shame about the mold. He lunged like he might actually do something, but the porch light made him hesitate. Maybe it was the way I didn't back up. Maybe it was the fact that I wanted him to. Behind him, I saw her. She was halfway down his driveway. Not running. Just leaving. Quiet, steady, head down like the water had finally cooled her fire. She didn't even glance at either of us. Brad noticed too. He turned slightly, caught a glimpse of her disappearing into the dark, and for the first time I saw it. Fear. Not of me. Of being left alone. He stepped back, shaking his head like the whole world had just turned upside down on him. I stepped inside and gently closed the door behind me. No shouting. No revenge. Just the sound of rain washing it all away. The house was too quiet when I went back inside. Not peaceful still. Like it was holding its breath. Waiting to see what I'd do next. I didn't follow her. She knew the way back if she wanted it. But even if she came, I wasn't sure I'd open the door. I made tea. Sat at the table. Just me, the mug, and the drip of water off the eaves outside. My phone buzzed once. An unknown number. I didn't answer. I already knew who it was. She came back at 4:13 a.m., didn't knock. Didn't say anything. Just slid her key into the lock, stepped in, soaked from ankle to collarbone, and stared at me like she expected some kind of emotional explosion. But I had nothing left to give her. Not fire, not fury, just clarity. You saw him? I asked, not even looking up from my cup. She nodded. Wet hair clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes weren't angry, not sad, either. Just bare. Stripped of all her fake smiles and practiced expressions. I walked away, she said quietly. I saw. I don't want to go back there. I looked at her now. Really looked. You already did. You just didn't like what was waiting for you. She bit her lip. I made a mistake. I took a sip. No. You made a choice. A mistake is tripping over a step. You built a staircase and climbed it. She winced, but she didn't argue. That was new. She sat across from me like a stranger. No ring. No makeup. No lies. I didn't think it would unravel like this, she said. You thought I'd fall apart. I thought you wouldn't notice. That one hit harder than the rest. That wasn't just betrayal, it was insult. Deep, sharp. She reached across the table, fingers trembling. But I do see you now. I pulled my hand away, slowly, deliberately. I'm not here to be seen, I said. I'm not a mirror for you to find yourself in. I was a partner, a husband, and you turned me into an audience. Tears welled in her eyes. Real this time, no performance. But I didn't reach for her. I wasn't her soft place to land anymore. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. That's because you broke something you never bothered to understand. She sat back, breathing uneven. The storm outside had quieted, but the one between us still hung heavy in the air. I want to stay, she said finally. And I want honesty, I replied. But we don't always get what we want. She stood, looked like she might collapse, or scream, or beg, but she didn't. She just walked to the guest room and closed the door. For now, that was enough. Not forgiveness, not closure, but distance. And sometimes, distance is where healing starts. She stayed in the guest room for 4 days. Not a word, not a touch, just the creak of the floorboards in the middle of the night, the light under her door, the occasional clang of a spoon when she made herself coffee in the kitchen and tried not to wake me. But I was always awake. On the 5th day, I found her sitting on the front porch. She looked like a version of herself I hadn't seen in years. No makeup, hoodie zipped up to her chin, eyes red but not from crying, just worn, real. She didn't look at me when she spoke. I told my sister. I paused. Told her what? Everything. About Brad. The messages. The pipe. The way I let it all happen like it wasn't going to burn everything down. I sat beside her, silent. She called me a coward, she said with a hollow laugh. Said I treated my marriage like a doormat and expected it to wipe my feet for me. I didn't respond. She wasn't looking for comfort. Just consequences. She finally turned to me. Are we done? That word, done, held so much weight. It wasn't a question of love anymore. It was a question of whether the wreckage was too deep to dig through. Whether the fire left anything behind that wasn't just ash. I stared at the street, the neighbor's house, the faint outline of the trench where the water had once carved through my yard. We're not anything right now, I said. We're not together. We're not apart. We're just in the wreckage. She nodded slowly, like she already knew. Do you want me to leave? Do you want to stay? I asked. That caught her off guard. I don't know, she whispered. I miss what we had. No, I said quietly. You miss what you thought you could get away with. Her shoulders sank. You miss comfort, I continued. You miss being loved unconditionally even when you stopped deserving it. She didn't defend herself. She couldn't. I miss being your person, she said after a long pause. But I don't deserve to be. I finally looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time since this started, I saw something crack in me. Not forgiveness, but space. The beginning of acceptance, not of her actions, but of the truth. The woman I married was gone. Not because she left. Because she changed. And maybe so had I. I'm filing the papers, I said. She didn't cry. She just nodded. Like she'd been waiting for it. Like she knew it was mercy disguised as closure. Will you tell people the truth? She asked. No, I said. I'll tell them you moved out. That it didn't work out. That's it. Why? Because I don't need anyone else to hate you, I said. You've got that covered. And with that I stood, walked inside, left her on the porch, where the storm had started. She was gone by morning. No note, no goodbye, just an empty guest room, a folded blanket, and a single key on the kitchen table. The same spare I'd refused to touch. I stood over it for a long time, staring at the little metal piece that once meant trust and now felt like a fossil of something extinct. I didn't feel relief, not joy, not even grief, just quiet. That unfamiliar, Heavy quiet that settles after the last door closes. The silence of something that really ended. Not just a fight, not just a phase, but the story itself. I filed the papers 3 days later. Clean. No drama. No drawn-out confessions or courtroom theatrics. She didn't contest it. Didn't beg. Just signed her name and disappeared like smoke after the flame. The house felt different. Not empty. Lighter. The pipe remained in the yard for a few more weeks. I thought about tearing it out completely, erasing all evidence, but in the end, I left it, capped it, sealed it, buried it under clean soil. Stayed quiet after that. The next storm came and went, and for once, everything drained exactly where it was supposed to. Brad never spoke to me again. He stopped waving, stopped jogging shirtless past my window. Eventually, a for sale sign went up in his yard. I didn't ask where he went. Didn't care. As for her, I don't know. We haven't spoken. Maybe she's found another audience. Maybe she's performing for someone new. Maybe she's sitting somewhere, trying to remember what it felt like to be trusted, and realizing she traded it for a temporary spotlight that burned out too fast. I don't miss her. I miss the idea of her. The ghost I used to build a life around. But not the reality. Never again. Yeah? I wake up, make coffee, step out into the yard, and breathe. No games. No shadows. No half-truths hanging in the air. Just me. The soil. And the sky that doesn't lie when it rains. To anyone reading this, if you feel something's off, don't ignore it. Pipes don't reroute themselves. People don't slip by accident into deception. Look where the water's coming from. Trace it back. Pull every thread. And when it all clicks, when you finally see it, don't break. Build. Build your way out. Because the only thing more powerful than the flood is knowing how to send it back.